All right, a little feedback for you, Thomas. So I like what you did overall with all three of your projects. I have some ideas potentially, and we'll see where they go. So first, I think this is a really good start. I think my only sort of like really minor things with it. Well, I'll talk about the good things first. I like how you have split this, and your cut is very consistent. Your angle is very consistent, so it kind of looks like it's coming apart. And I like how you skewed both of these slightly to give it a little bit of kind of like motion going back, falling backwards a bit, if that makes sense. My sort of only minor thing would be with this one would be which direction. I would assume it's slicing from left to right, since like I would guess like you would have like if this was a knife or the object that's cutting it was going this way, and then as it's sort of the slice is getting closer to the object that's cutting it, it's obviously the gap is closer and it spreads as it moves because of that motion. So I think to enhance that motion a little bit, maybe I don't know if I would try it on every single one, but maybe have these like little tail kind of things that you have on the opposite side. So going this way a little bit, to sort of emphasize that motion going this way. Because sort of like right now, it looks like you have this point like this, like if you go back to way back to 2D design, like this kind of has a motion of pointing left to right rather than right to left. So it kind of seems like it wants to be pointing this way. And I feel like the opening of your slice is the opposite. So this would just be a simple, you know, if it was this sort of object like this, I would just reflect it. And then if you had, you know, even separated it a little bit, and then you had some motion kind of going towards it and maybe even coming off of this a little bit. So it looks like it's going, the slice is going right to left, or I would reverse the entire thing and have your object, let me see, there we go. Have your object going this way if your cut is going from left to right. And then again, still having your, you know, now you can see kind of like these objects kind of go along with it as like motion lines coming across, you know what I mean? So I think just deciding which way your slice is going, whether it's going left to right or right to left. And then I think just kind of like some object ordering, you know, swapping this, either having it face the left and have your motion lines go towards the left, if that makes sense, or swap everything so it's going right. But yeah, play with that and see which one you like better. But I kind of like, I don't know, part of me kind of likes the slicing right to left, because generally we read left to right, so it's kind of fun to play with the opposite of that. But I think that with that, again, you just need to have your motion lines here, you know, maybe coming off the S, or even, I don't know if those are separate. Oh, they are. Even if you had, you know, these kind of grouped together-ish, you know, you could even kind of line them up with that corner there a little bit. Ooh, that's way too far. So you could even line them up. I can't really see because the smart guides, but give or take, if you lined these up, you know, obviously you wouldn't have them like completely separate, but yeah, maybe not so much. Maybe not using these so much as arrows, but yeah, you get the idea with how they come off the E that way as sort of motion lines. Or again, if you were to have it go the opposite way, you could kind of come in a little bit closer there, and then let's reflect it. And depending on where you want to put these, as we zoom in, you know, you could have this come off of that, give or take that center point of the gap there. And then depending on where you wanted to put these, if you wanted to have it come off of the S there, even offset them a little bit, that's not too bad. if you were to offset it, or you might have to play a little bit if you wanted to have a more even, you'd have to play with this angle a little bit just to get it. And you can use that smart guide to keep your angle there, give or take. So if you wanted to have it go that way, how it like sort of visually just makes a little bit more sense that way to have it come through. And you can try adding, I don't know if you would want to add it to all of them, but you can try adding, adding a couple there and seeing how, again, I don't know if I would add it to every single one of them, but adding them to sort of give that, maybe it would work. I don't know. Try it and see if you like it. But again, I'm pointing like you can see it, giving that motion going from left or from right to left in this case, or left to right. So I think just deciding which way you want to go with it. But I think it's a super strong illustration. I like it a lot. Okay, I'm going to your ad here. Again, a really strong start. I think some tweaking, and I think you'll be all set with this one. This one, again, remember that we're going to be going black and white. We're not using any color for this. So not a huge issue, but if you just change your colors in the background to kind of keep this theme kind of going, you totally can. But I would just kind of swap these for grays that are similar values. You might have to lighten them up a little bit just with the way the text is over it. But what I might do is I would have this logo be a little bit bigger, maybe even, kind of fill, if I can do this, there we go, like kind of fill this space a little bit. You might need to reformat your headline just slightly, or even if you had it come down here and had this be more centered, this headline be more centered, and had your logo, I have the shape a little bit off, but you get the general gist. But this way you could have your logo kind of centered in this area, have your site night kind of centered in this area. And then this sort of frees up this space as more of a square format to lay out the text. And then you could bring this help the world see down in this sort of like sunrise that you have. Or if you wanted to have the 3 logos in this area, put your copyright info here, give or take, and have your 3 logos in one line. I think you need to reformat. This was kind of tricky on purpose. I would make this one, the Lions logo, definitely smaller, smaller than the AAA. The AAA could come down probably a little bit if you're going to sort of match the visual size or the visual sort of weight of the LensCrafters. I think this can get maybe, give or take, at least 10% smaller. This one definitely 25-ish% smaller, but just to sort of even those out. And you could even put those on one line here. And then again, have your copyright info down here maybe. And then again, that helps you open up this area for more of like a square format. So what I might do is, you could take this whole paragraph here and make that significantly smaller and have it kind of in a block here, and then separate your information kit. And then again, if you bring this down, separate this information, you could have it be, give or take about the same size as this, or maybe a tiny bit bigger, once you make this block smaller. So keep this about the same size, and then you can have, after visit, you can have your web address and your phone number a lot larger down here to sort of break up that contact information. Again, kind of look through some of the other feedback to sort of see what I'm talking about there, because I talk about that a little bit in a couple of the other ones. But I think sort of resizing this logo and having it, give or take in this area, even if you wanted to have it lower, in the lower right-hand corner. I also have to think left and right. Give yourself room for that, that legal disclosure, even if you want to move it up a little bit, and then you can have, this whole space for your headline, even if you make that site night a little smaller, but you can sort of reformat your headline in this space, and then you still have this whole more sort of like square area to reformat everything else. And then lastly, your origins ad. I think this is a good idea. I like your idea of having, some words highlighted. What I might do with this, if you're going to do something like this, I might make this a bit smaller and simplify it a little bit, and just have "Men deserve to feel good too," and just have that at the top here with that same spacing, but basically you just get rid of that top line, and then basically your design would start kind of like right there. And so that frees up this area here for all of this. You might need to reformat it slightly, but I like this idea of sort of a text heavy ad and how it goes around the Origins logo. What I might do is I might leave it about the same size, but see if you can increase that line spacing and really giving it room to breathe, because it's a bit hard to read. So that way your highlighted words stand out a little more. And even if you were to bring it so that, your text basically fit, like I said, as I'm highlighting this whole thing, even if you started here-ish and your text basically took up the same amount of space, but you could have it end at the bottom of the Origins logo, so it'll give you some room to spread it out and still have it curve around that logo. But I think increasing the line spacing and giving it a little bit more room, a little bit more negative space, makes it a little bit easier to read when it's so text heavy. You want to make sure that it's fairly easily readable. And what you could also do is play with the idea potentially of leaving everything about the same size, and then maybe making these words, your highlight words, a little bit larger. So like if this is 10 point, it's not, I get it, but if this is 10 point font, maybe make these 12, just slightly bigger to give it that just a little bit more emphasis. So it'll take a little bit of playing around with the formatting. But again, I think if you got rid of that top line and just started with the men deserve, basically have this headline sit right where it is, except get rid of the top line. And again, that frees up this area to make this block of text, give it more line spacing, like really push it to give it that separation so it's a little bit easier to read. And then maybe tweak, this is an idea that may or may not work, but maybe tweak these highlight words and make them slightly bigger, like 2 to 4. Again, if it's a 10 point font, maybe make it 12, maybe try 14, see if that's too much or not. But just to give it that like subtle sort of little bit more emphasis. And then I think the products, lastly, I think it's a good range. I think you might play around with the sizing a little bit just to give it a little bit more, like with these two, maybe make this a little bit smaller so that the top of that bottle shows up more, or even make the top of the bottle a little taller, because you have a lot of, this good, I would play with it. I was gonna say this good sort of interplay between positive and negative space. I cut myself off there. But what I might do is play around with the sizing a little bit, or give these a little bit of separation so they're not like super crowded. Maybe even getting rid of one product and then playing around with that. But I think maybe a little bit of organization, a little bit of variety isn't the right word, but a little bit, so it's not just so straight across the top, because all of these products are slightly different shapes. I know you don't know that. But I think just to give it a little bit more visual interest, to give them, instead of having this effectively this line be straight across the top, give it a little bit more sort of interplay with this positive negative space like you have going here. Like this negative space works really well. I think just kind of give that a little bit more emphasis. But yeah, overall, I think this is an excellent job as well. And I'm looking forward to see what you do with the finished products.